Hello, we are Group 1 and we'll be presenting the topic media trials as a social problem. For looking at media trials, let's look at media. Media is basically a window to the world. Media is the fourth pillar of democracy. It basically spreads awareness, information about our surroundings, and mainly today it's propagating opinions for us. Uh, the second part of this second part is often what gives rise to media trials. Usually, what happens is that media, television, newspapers declare a person or an accused in an ongoing investigation or a judicial trial guilty even before an official verdict has come out. This often happens even before an investigation has started. Now, despite several outcomes, a lot of times media trials lead to one problem. They violate the principle on which a judiciary system relies. That is the presumption of innocence, which means everybody charged with a criminal offense shall be presumed innocent until proven guilty according to law. So, how have media trials evolved throughout the history of our country? In the 90s, post liberalization, many players came into the telecast and broadcast system. The court wrote down some rules, and Prasar Bharati was established for regulating this electronic media. The rules basically meant no government interference in the name of public interest would take place, and nobody had the monopoly to telecast certain information. These this corporatization and privatization gave rise to cutthroat competitions, which also means money. And this money is gained through advertisements, which are aired on the channels based on the television rating points. Now, TRP just means how many people are watching your channel. To gain this advantage of viewers, most channels relied on sensational headlines, stories, and dramatization of events. One big happening in 2013 was the suicide of Khurshid Anwar. Now, Khurshid Anwar was a social activist accused of raping a woman. And a certain channel played an interview of the woman with a slant and with a slight lean towards accusing and deciding that Khurshid Anwar was already guilty. They asked the public for their opinion, their messages, just to make sure that the accused was taken to justice. All this negative publicity and all this pressure resulted in Khurshid Anwar committing suicide on the very next day this interview was aired. Now, the problem with such editorialization is that this overlooks the basic principles of judiciary. But there are still counter examples. Tarun Tejpal, Justice Ganguly, and Asaram Bapu were all involved in sexual misconduct, and where here the media actually reached these powerful people where the police also couldn't. But as mass media begin to grow, the owners and the people who provide money to mass media are who control what is publicized and what is not. But in 2004, the people actually gained back their power with the advent of social media. Facebook came out in 2004, and that was the birth of the virtual persona. Today, we are almost a mere data point. Our virtual persona is bigger than our real. And what has been many times expressed by many people and is not well received is that in the internet provides you a great opportunity to express your opinions, but mostly these opinions are based on ignorant assumptions and stupidity, and people do not wish to know the facts before they publicize their opinion. Talking about the hot topic and staying up to date is now something of peer pressure. Everybody is a media house and keep publishing opinions on different things. What this leads to mainly is defamation. Now, defamation is actually a pretty big crime if you do it in a regulated mass media scene. But the cyber laws were incompetent during that time, and defamation on the social networks was very easy. Anonymity gave rise to vigilantism, which led to harassing through hate speech, rape threats, cancel culture, cyberbullying, and online stalking. There were absolutely no repercussions. And your social status was not dictated by a government, but the opinion of so many people around you. A case in point is people easily announcing on the internet that some person is, whether he is anti-national or national or is a patriot, without the smallest hint of what the sedition law is. Now, this system not only harms our democracy but also undermines the authority of our constitution.
Now we are going to view media trials from sociological perspective with two major sociological theories, namely functionalist theory and conflict theory. First, functionalism on media trial. So, analyzing the social issue of media trial from functionalist theory led us to question the underlying shortcomings of Indian judicial institution. There a critical shortage in number of judges, which is 20.9 per million people, and frequent delays due to adjournment have led to over 39 million pending cases, and complicated procedures and rising expenses to fight a case in court often hinders common people from approaching the court. There comes the media, which have latent function as social media and media serves as a medium to allow common people to voice their concerns and grievances, and its latent dysfunction being the problem arises when people use the incomplete, invalid, and irrelevant information acquired from media to reach premature conclusion about someone's innocence. And additionally, these platforms are often used to target people without any due evidences. And since on social media, the burden of proof is on accused, and it spoils the life of several innocent people. Now, coming to the conflict theory of on media trial, the trial by media can be perceived as a conflict between media's right of freedom of expression, which comes under Article 19, and a defendant's right to a fair trial, which comes under Article 21. Now, judiciary and media are considered as the third and fourth pillar of Indian democracy, and hence are supposed to complement each other. Judiciary is meant to provide justice to individuals and ensure that innocent is not wrongly convicted, and media is supposed to provide us with objective information about different cases. However, both these institutions often fail to meet their social expectation and hence required intervention from one another. Unfortunately, this led to cases where an innocent is imprisoned and cases where media defames reputed individual by prematurely declaring them as criminals. This phenomenon is akin to what Lewis Kuser described as conflict in social networks, according to which a conflict is likely to develop between parts of system which has close relationship between them.
So now we move on to one of the important aspects of our presentation, that is the case studies. So there are in total three case studies that we explored to find the role of social media in a judicial trial. The case studies are chosen such that so as to show you the evolution of social media over time. The first case study that we'll explore is the Arushi Talwar murder case in 2008. So these are the following newspaper clippings from the case where different newspapers chose different sensational headlines for the case. These are the case details to give you some context about it. So it all started in 2008 where a 14-year-old Arushi Talwar was found dead in a room. Following were different proceedings with multiple crime agencies being involved, multiple courts being involved, and finally in 2013, the parents of the deceased were accused and sentenced to life imprisonment, while after 4 long years they were acquitted of the murder. So the role of media in tainting the image of Talwar. So what exactly was it? There are four major points that we explored in this following case. The first one is the competition. So the competition between different news channels made them cross new boundaries. One of the following examples was Nupur Talwar, who was the mother of the deceased. Her interview with NDTV has been quoted to infuriate the folks at Times Now, who then made their lifelong goal so as to find the loopholes in our narrative. The second is the sensationalism. The media portrayed the entire case like a sensational movie to gain higher TRPs without being sensitive towards the family of the deceased or anyone near her about the loss that they have faced. They narrated one-sided stories portraying Talwar as the murderers, even when the court hasn't given their judgment in the case. The third is the character assassination. So the news channels repeatedly highlighted the mother of the deceased as guilty because in her interview with NDTV, she did not care. So there are also unproven quoted claims by the news channels about Talwar that they were wife swapping, as well as different stories regarding a physical relationship between Arushi and Himraj were aired. So this was the level that media stooped to, and they had no feelings towards the disease. Fourth is the exploiting tragedy for TRP. So all the news channels, all the newspapers, they all exploited this tragedy so as to gain TRP or become famous in their industry. Different TV shows also used the plot of this murder in their episode to gain higher TRPs and become more popular. The next one is this Sushant Singh Rajput death case, which is one of the most recent cases highlighted by the media. It was happened in 2020, and almost everyone in the country as well as around the world knows about it. The role of media was very forceful in this trial. Here are different photos from news channels where all of them are claiming to arrest Riya as she is the major guilty in this whole trial or behind the killing of Sushant. Different courts, be it the Bombay High Court or even Supreme Court, slammed media multiple times on the way they were reporting. So these are the case details. I hope everyone knows about the case, but you can still refer to the slide to find out the important timelines in the case. So now we move on to the important part, that is the role of media and what were the consequences of it. So there are majorly three roles that we have identified here. The first was the stalking. Everyone of you might have seen different news channels 24/7 stalking Riya as well as her family. She was accused of murder by the news channels. She was called a witch, and due to all these things, was even given rape threats on the social media, be it Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. So these were the consequences that media can have on a person. Regarding privacy breach, which was the second point, there was several WhatsApp chats that were leaked between the actress and her different acquaintances. They were aired on TV and they paid no attention to the right of privacy of an individual. The third and the most important is the character assassination. Almost all of us have a social standing in the society, and that can be easily slashed by the media in these days. The same was done with Riya and her whole family. The police questioned Riya's aukat to criticize the government when she did. A popular news channel also ran a program with the highlight headline called Sushant Par Riya Ka Kala Jadoo. So these were the sensational headlines that were given to different programs, which were actually meant to just report the facts while they were actually portraying a one-sided picture and framing someone guilty even before the court has not given any judgment. So this is all. Yeah.
Moving on to the third case study, it is the most recent one, the Zomato assault case, which took place in 2021. Unlike the previous two cases where media played a huge role, it was in this case it was the social media which played the greater role. So these are some of the tweets which took place during the happenings of the event. So let's move forward to the case details. So what happened here was that Hitesha Chandrani, a social media influencer, took to Instagram and Twitter to allege a Zomato delivery boy named Kamraj of physical assault. She posted a video of herself with a bleeding nose, urging people to help her get justice. As a response to her video, a FIR was placed against Kamraj and he was booked by the police. Also, Zomato suspended his license as a delivery boy. After he got a conditional bail, he filed a counter FIR against Hitesa, alleging her that she started the fight by throwing the slippers at him and questioning his dignity, and he didn't even attack her. And after investigation, it was found that Hitesa was actually guilty, and police booked her under 355 assault, 504 insult, and 506 criminal intimidation charges of the Indian Penal Code. In response to this, Hitesa took down the video which she posted on Twitter and fled from Bangalore and took residence in her aunt's place in Maharashtra. So, what was the role played by the social media? So, the main points are the social media influence. Hitesa, a social media influencer who had a significant following on social media platforms, so her side of the story got more polarized as it was the words of a popular female influencer versus the words of a male delivery agent. Burden of proof. Normally in a standard court proceeding, the burden of proof is generally on the accuser, as it is impossible to provide a proof of innocence. However, in case of social media, it is just the opposite. The person who has the more number of followers manipulate the public opinion into their favor, and now the accused is left with the burden of the proof which he has to provide for his or her innocence. The third point is defamation and loss of livelihood. Kamraj, who was the sole breadwinner of his household, was suspended from his job simply on the words of a lady on social media. His past record of excellent service was not even accounted for. While on the other hand, when Hitesa was actually found guilty by police, she just removed those video and walked away from all this by just pressing a delete button on her phone. This makes us think if it is so easy to get away with defaming an individual. This also questions the problem of equality, as unverified words of a famous person led to the suspension of the job of the other, while verified words of the minority didn't cause any problem to the famous personality who easily got away with it. Thank you.
Looking at these case studies, it might seem that we might as well abolish media trials. But this is only one part of the story. In reality, media trials are a very powerful tool in holding people accountable for their actions. Before discussing what measures should be taken to reduce such negative media trials, it is only fair that we highlight some of its positive effects. Firstly, social media molds the mindset of the people. It allows us to hold powerful people accountable for their actions. As we can see from these Twitter statistics, a large chunk of tweets are sent out in response to crimes. Additionally, with the advent of mobile apps for newspapers and social media, people from every corner of the world are aware of each intricate event. Such widespread information allows people to call out others when they're involved in some kind of malpractice. The shame associated with public call-outs can be a driving factor in forcing people to control their actions. Now let us go over some cases where media intervention led to a positive impact. As we can see, there are a lot of cases. So, for instance, there's the Jessica Lal murder case, Bijal Joshi rape case, the Me Too movement, the Prashant Bhushan contempt case, and several others. So finally, let us discuss some measures that can be taken to shift the balance of media trials towards the positive side. Firstly, what should the media do? The media should be providing objective facts and not subjective opinions regarding a case. In case they are providing a subjective opinion, make sure to have a disclaimer on every frame regarding the same. Care should be taken while running defamatory pieces against someone who has not yet been convicted. Violence in any form should not be glorified. In case an error was made in an article, correction and retraction should be done. Finally, the right to privacy of individuals should always be upheld unless there exists a genuine overriding public interest. Finally, what should we as individuals be doing? We should not place blind trust on social media or even on television media. We should consume any content on the internet with a grain of salt and verify the content before sharing the information. We should report fake news and targeted harassment posts on social media. This prevents those posts from being flagged further and allows the algorithms to become more robust in flagging such posts in the future. Finally, remember the clause of presumption of innocence and don't declare someone a criminal prematurely. Thank you.